Book of Heaven, Volume 16, March 22nd, 1924. Necessity to write everything. Just like redemption, the work of the Fiat Voluntas tua on earth as it is in heaven is a work hidden and unknown between the soul and God, which prepares and matures universal fruits for the human generations. The extremely long way which Luisa must cover. Only when creatures come to live in his divine will God be able to find his rest, complete his works, and give the last divine brushstroke to all creation. After I had told the confessor what is written above, he said that he was not convinced about it, and that, if this were true, on that morning one should have seen the world changed, at least in part. So I remained doubtful and almost unwilling to write or say anything else. Then, as my lovable Jesus came, I abandoned myself in his arms, and I poured out my whole heart with him. I told him what the confessor thought of it, and that, in order to believe, they would want to see prodigious things, miracles, etc. And my beloved Jesus, pressing me to himself, as though wanting to dispel at his touch the doubts that were troubling me, told me,
"My daughter, courage, do not lose heart. If it were not necessary for you to write, I would not have obliged you to this sacrifice. You must know that each effect, good and value that I make known to you about my will, and what the creature can do by living in it, are like many tastes, baits, magnets, foods, harmonies, fragrances, lights. So each effect I speak to you about contains its own distinct property. Therefore, by not manifesting all the goods which are in my will, and where the soul can reach by living in it, you would cause either a bait in order to capture them, or a taste to attract them, or a magnet to draw them, or a food to satiate them, to be missing. So the perfect harmony, the pleasure of the fragrances, the light to guide them, would be lacking. And not finding all possible goods, that is, not knowing them, they would not have that great yearning to rise above all other things in order to live life in my will. And besides, do not worry about what you were told. My mama also contained my will as life. Yet the world continued its course in evil. In nothing did it appear to be changed. Not one external miracle was seen in her. And yet, what she did not do in the low world, she did in heaven with her Creator. By her continuous living in the divine will, she formed the place within herself in order to draw the word upon earth. She changed the destiny of mankind. She performed the greatest of miracles, which no one else has done or will ever do, a unique miracle, to transport heaven upon earth. For one who must do the greatest, it is not necessary to do the lesser. And yet, who knew anything of what my mama was doing? What she did with the Eternal One in order to obtain the great portent of the descent of the Word into the midst of creatures. It was known only that she was the cause of it, by few at my conception, by many when they saw me breathe my last on the cross. My daughter, the greater the good I want to do to the soul, and this good must descend for the good of the human generations, and must bring me complete glory. The more I draw her to myself, and I make this good mature and season between the soul and me. I segregate her from everyone, I make her ignored, and when my will wants her to draw close to some creature, it takes all my power in order for her to submit to the sacrifice. Therefore, let your Jesus do, and calm yourself."
And I, my Jesus, they are right. They say that they see no evidence, no positive good, that these are all words. And I don't really want anything. All I want is to do as you yourself want, that I do your most holy will, and that what passes between you and me remain in the secret of our hearts. And Jesus,
"Ah, my daughter, would you like it if I had worked my redemption in secret with my celestial Father and my dear Mama, who was to conceive me, and then no one else was to know that I had descended upon earth? As great as a good might be, if it is not known, it does not produce life, it does not multiply, it is not loved nor imitated. So my redemption would have been without effect for creatures. My daughter, let them talk and let me do. Do not be concerned, and do everything I did while being on earth, both internal and external, which is not yet known, nor has it received its full and desired fruit, especially my hidden life. Creatures knew almost nothing of all the good I did, yet it served in an admirable and prodigious way before my divine Father in order to prepare and mature the fruit of redemption. However, on the outside, I lived beside creatures as ignored, poor, abject, and despised. But this meant nothing. Before my Father, I was who I was, and my interior works opened seas of light, of graces, of peace, and of forgiveness between heaven and earth. My interest was to open heaven, closed for many centuries for the good of the earth, and that my Father would look with love upon creatures. Once this was done, the rest would come by itself. So was this not a great good? Rather, it was the all, it was the yeast, the preparation, the foundation of redemption. The same with you. It is necessary that I place the yeast of my will, that I form the preparation, that I lay the foundations, that there be highest accord between you and me, between my interior acts and yours, in order to open heaven to new graces, to new currents, and to dispose the supreme majesty to concede the greatest grace, that his will be known upon earth and live in the midst of creatures with its full dominion, as it does in heaven. And while you occupy yourself with this, do you think that the earth receives no good? Ah, you are wrong. The generations are running on a vertiginous decline in evil. Who is it that sustains them? Who prevents them from being submerged in their vertiginous race to the point of disappearing from the face of the earth? Remember that not too long ago the sea broke its boundaries under the earth, threatening to swallow entire cities, and your own town was in great danger. Who stopped that scourge? Who made the waters stop and enclose themselves within their boundaries? This is precisely the great scourge that is preparing for the ugly vertiginous race of creatures. Nature itself is tired of so many evils and would want to take revenge for the rights of its creator. All natural things would want to place themselves against man. The sea, the fire, the wind, the earth, are about to go out of their boundaries to harm and strike the generations in order to decimate them. And does it seem trivial to you that while the human race is immersed in irreparable evils, I call you, and raising you between heaven and earth, and identifying you with my own acts, I make you run within my will to prepare the act opposite to the so many evils that flood the earth, preparing good, trying to conquer man with my love, so as to stop him from his vertiginous race, giving him the greatest thing, which is the light of my will, so that, by knowing it, he may take it as food in order to restore his lost strengths, and so that, strengthened, he may desist from his recklessness and reacquire a firm step so as to no longer fall into evils.
Then my Jesus disappeared, and I remained more embittered, thinking about the ugly, vertiginous race of creatures and about the turmoil which nature will cause against them. Then, as I returned to prayer, my Jesus came back in a pitiful state. He seemed restless. He was moaning, grieving. He laid himself within me and would turn now to the right, now to the left. I asked him, "Jesus, my love, what's wrong? Oh, please, you suffer very much. Let us share the pains. Do not want to be alone. Don't you see how much you suffer and how you can take no more?" Now, while I was saying this, I found myself outside of myself in the arms of a priest. However, while the person seemed to be a priest, it seemed to me that his voice was that of Jesus. And he said to me,
"We will cover an extremely long way. Be attentive on what you see."
And we were walking without touching the ground. First I was carrying him in my arms, but since a dog was following me, as if it wanted to bite me, I was afraid. So to free me from that fear, we changed position, and he carried me. I said to him, "Why did you not do it before? You caused me to be so scared, and I did not say anything because I thought it was necessary that I carry you. Now I am content, because as I am carried in your arms, it will not be able to do anything to me anymore." And I kept saying, "Jesus is carrying me in his arms." And he would repeat,
I am carrying Jesus in my arms.
But that dog followed our whole journey. Only it kept one of my feet in his mouth, but without biting it. The journey was long, and I often asked, "How much more do we have left?" And he,
100 more miles.
then as I asked again, he said,
30 more.
and so on, until we arrived in the city. And now who can say what could be seen along the way? At some points, towns reduced to a heap of stones. Somewhere else, places which were flooded and towns buried in water. At some points, seas were overflowing. Somewhere else, rivers. And at some other points, chasms of fire were opened. It seemed to me that all the elements were agreeing among themselves to harm the human generations, forming the graves in which to bury them. Even more, what could be seen along the way and was most frightening and horrifying were the evils of creatures. Everything was darkness that came from them, but thick darkness, accompanied by a rotten and poisonous closeness. The darkness was such that many times one could not even discern what the place was. Everything seemed pretense and duplicity, and if there was any good at all, it was only superficial and apparent. But inside, they were smoldering the ugliest vices and plotting the most insidious snares, which displeased the Lord more than if they were openly doing evil. And this, in all classes of people, like a woodworm that gnaws the whole root of good. In other places, one could see revolutions, murdering of people by ambush. But who can say all that could be seen? So, tired of seeing so many evils, I often repeated, "And when are we going to finish this long journey?" And the one who was carrying me, all pensive, answered,
A little more. You have not seen everything yet.
Finally, after long struggling, I found myself inside myself, in my bed, and my sweet Jesus, who continued to moan because he was suffering very much, stretching out his arms to me, told me,
My daughter, give me a little rest, for I can take no more.
and leaning his head upon my breast, he seemed to want to sleep. But his sleep was not a peaceful one. And I, not knowing what to do, remembered about his most holy will, in which there is full rest, and said to him, My love, I lay my intelligence in your will in order to find your uncreated intelligence, so that by laying mine within yours, I may shade all created intelligences, in such a way that you may feel your shadow placed before all created minds, and you may find rest for the sanctity of your intelligence. I lay my word in your fiat, in order to place the shadow of that omnipotent fiat before the human voices, so that your breath and your mouth may be able to rest. I lay my works in yours, to place the shadow and the sanctity of your works before the works of creatures, so as to give rest to your hands. I lay my little love in your will, to place you in the shade of your immense love, which I place before the hearts of all, to give rest to your weary heart. As I kept saying this, my Jesus calmed himself and fell into a sweet sleep. Then after some time he woke up, but he was calm, and pressing me to himself, he told me,
My daughter, I was able to rest because you surrounded me with the shadows of my works, of my fiat, and of my love. This is the rest I spoke about after I created all things. And since man was the last to be created, I wanted to rest in him. That is, by virtue of my will acting in him, which formed my shadow in him, I was to find my rest in the fulfillment of my works. But this was denied to me, because he did not want to do my will. And until I find someone who wants to live of my will, which overshadows my image in the soul, not finding my shadow, I cannot rest, because I cannot complete my works and give the last divine brushstroke to all creation. This is why the earth needs to be purged and renewed, but with strong purges, such that many will lose their lives. And you have patience and always follow my will.
Thank you for being a part of our community here at Divine Will app. If you enjoy listening to Jesus' lessons on how to live in the divine will, please give this video a thumbs up. Your likes help us reach more souls yearning to live in the kingdom of the divine will. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections, so drop a comment below. Your insights not only enrich our community, but also inspire others on their spiritual journey. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By joining us, you're helping to spread the news of the kingdom of the divine will, so that together we can bring His kingdom to reign on earth as it is in heaven. In the divine will, always.